Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. So today is Thankful, Thoughtful Thursday. And I'd like to tell you what I'm thankful for today. It's a bright, sunshiny day here in Seattle. And I know I've been saying that a lot lately, but don't get the wrong impression. It does rain a lot here. So, and I'm also thankful for my sister she breeds her dogs, her show dogs, and her dog had a litter about 5 weeks ago, and it had complications. So she only had 2 puppies that survived, and they've been kind of not doing well, and they're starting to do better. So I'm really thankful for that. I was just talking to her about, getting together for Thanksgiving, and hopefully the puppies they'll be about 6 weeks old, and they'll be acting like puppies. So. Well, if this is your first time listening, I'm a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, Reiki master, and a life coach. And we have a great show planned for today. The show is called Optimal Self-Expression by Creating a State of Flow. And my guest is Kathleen Cavender. And Kathleen is a jazz singer, an artist, a writer, and an entrepreneur. She's a 4th generation professional artist from right here in Washington. And she began selling her paintings at an early age. Throughout her life, she's exhibited in galleries across the country, including Seattle, Portland, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. And in 2007, her work was accepted and displayed in the Florence Biennale. Okay, I guess that's because it's Italian. Mm-hmm. Okay, in Florence, Italy. So Kathleen's paintings can be found in many art museums, as well as private and corporate collections, including Boeing, British Petroleum, and Safeco. And she's represented by the Museum of Arts and Culture in Spokane, Washington. When she isn't in her studio painting, Kathleen is working on the final touches of her book, Creativity for Mere Mortals, or singing jazz on a local stage with her favorite musicians. She lives in Spokane, and I'm really excited to introduce her, and I'll let her fill in any blanks in that bio before we ask her some more questions about creativity. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me on. It's so good to see you and to be here today. I think you covered everything pretty well when it comes to my career path. My great-grandfather actually supported a family of 12 on his art during the turn of the century in London, England. I live in the southern part of London.
Wow.
And yeah, and then I've had my grandfather was an opera singer, and I came from a long line of musicians and artists, mostly painters. Yeah,
Wow.
so very fortunate.
Yes. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the different types of creativity that you that you do? I know that you do different types of work or play.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's see. Primarily I'm a painter, but and I can paint because my grandmother sold art supplies and started me out really young. She saw that I was the sibling that had the passion, so she fed it really well. And then I had the support of other family members. But I remember when acrylic paints first came out. That's how old I am. And she had given them to me, said, try these out and tell me what you think. And so I learned to paint in oil first, and of course draw and charcoals and graphite and all that. And always was given a variety of papers to work with, and oil painting and watercolor and acrylic and pastel. I started in pastel actually later in life when my aunt, who was a pastel artist, passed away, and my cousin gave me her vast collection of pastel sticks. And I found that I could render a quality painting in a short order. I mean, in a day, and that they also were received really well and sold really fast. And then we're in some of the local art auctions, we're getting really high prices for pastels on paper. And so I don't think I'll be giving up pastels anytime, because they give you immediate satisfaction. And so that, and then I've also done my son when I was homeschooling him. He's a father now, and he's a scientist and not in the arts. But when I was homeschooling him, he was very active in the arts, and he got into found object art, making clocks and sculptures and that sort of thing. And I participated in some of that and ended up going on Etsy as under an assumed name. So a lot of those are out there, and I think I might have just KC on them as a signature, but really fun. And I'm a firm believer that if you bring creativity into whatever you do, whether it's cooking or gardening, music of course plays a role in my life, and any of the art forms that are visual arts. Every now and then I get thrown a bone by the city to paint on something odd, like a giant coffee mug, or this recently was a fiberglass heart. And several artists in town were asked to paint on these fiberglass hearts. So I'm challenged by those, and I enjoy those because they take me out of my norm and actually end up inspiring me in other ways, whether it's through the use of the color or the paint or the subject matter or whatever. So just, I'm just big on creativity, and that's why the book.
So do you ever feel uninspired or unmotivated?
Sure. Oh yeah, sure. I've had many times where I have felt really uninspired, and I'll just tell you a secret. I've had days where I have felt extremely inspired, and I can usually tell when I start to write, because I'm a note taker and a note maker, and I can tell once I put my pen down to the paper that, ooh, there's some flow going on there, which we'll talk about. And I get in the studio and some magical things will happen. Other times I think I'm inspired and I will paint like laboriously for 10 hours, and at the end of the day wipe it all off because I'm just not impressed and I'm not happy with it. Other times where I've needed to come up with one more painting for an exhibit, and I am just exhausted and my arm is tired and my brain is tired and I don't feel like painting at all. And I've had a few moments, Kate, where that's when I painted my best work. So it's, there's a couple of quotes. In fact, I wrote them down. Picasso said, "Inspiration exists, but it has to find you working." And I think that's true. Once you get going, you know. And then Chuck Close has a great one. Amateurs look for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. And I think that that's more who I am. Elizabeth Gilbert did a TED Talk, and it's worth looking at. She's written a book called Big Magic, which is excellent. But she talks about how she just feels like a mule just prodding along, when she writes, whereas there's some that just seem to, everything just flows through them like the gods have smiled on them, But I think it's a combination of things for most of us. And that, I'm not saying that feelings don't play a role. I think feelings are very important, but they can't be everything.
Well, I think you're right about you have to be, like for writing, you have to write even when you aren't really maybe writing things that are really inspiring. Like I was writing a bio and a press release for somebody. And for me, writing that kind of thing for other people is just kind of easy. It's just kind of something I can just do easily and don't have to think much about. But in the process of doing it, because I was doing it, all of these other ideas about things were coming to me.
Right.
And I noticed that because I hadn't been writing much lately before I did that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. While I'm writing, I'll get an idea for a painting. While I'm painting, I'll get an idea about writing. Absolutely.
So are there any other ways that you get unstuck or spark your creativity or re-spark it?
Yeah. Well, I meditate. I do mindful meditation, and I'm sure a lot of your viewers know what that is. I do a lot of different meditations, but I try to quiet my mind. Lately, I've been doing a lot of live videos on my Facebook page, talking about the monkey mind, and that can be a real distraction when you're trying to create. And so to quiet my mind down before, and if I find my monkey mind acting up while I'm working, I try to quiet it again. Having music on really helps. I can think about the music rather than creating stories in my head that sometimes often actually go into a negative spin about something that never even happened. Our little brains like to do that. And so when I was talking to you about flow earlier, there's a book actually, and his name is hard to say and impossible to spell. I want to say, may I by a vowel, because it's a lot of consonants, but it's Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Anyway, it's called Flow. There's one called Flow, and there's one called Creativity, which is the subtitle is Flow and the Discovery. Let's see, Flow and the Psychology of Discovery and Invention. And those are really good books that explain a lot about how I operate. And that is that there are certain elements that have to take place. I have to, in order for flow. So let me just, first of all, I'll explain what flow is. And that is when you have that little sweet spot where you feel time is just like not an issue. Like I'll go down to the studio and or I out to the studio and I will turn on the heat and the lights and get the music going and then think I'm going to go back in and get dressed, and next thing I know, it's lunchtime and I'm covered in paint because I pick up the brush and I'm just lost and I lose track of time. That is flow. When you are in that moment where you're so focused. And so part of that is being focused. And in order to be focused, I have to give myself permission to not allow those distractions in, like the laundry needs to be done. I need to get to the bank. I need, this, that, and the other thing. I shut out the world. And so it's giving myself permission, even if it's just for an hour. I tell my students, if you can give yourself even permission for just an hour, you'd be surprised at how much you can get accomplished if you can achieve that moment of flow. You can work for hours and hours and hours, not be in flow and not get much done. But you can get a whole lot done if you're in that sweet spot of flow. And so I recently actually, Kate, found an app for my phone, and it's called Block and Flow. And it's awesome because you can color coordinate things you have to do. And so I can block out 3 hours here and 3 hours there where I know I'm just going to focus on painting or writing. And I turn off the phone. I do not answer the door. And I know that an alarm's going to go off in 3 hours. But for that 3 hours, I'm completely focused on whatever it is I'm working on. I'm not thinking about, okay, I only have this much time, or I need to watch the clock or anything. This gives me the freedom to really focus. And so that's the other portion of it, is just having that freedom to really create, even if it's just for a little bit every day.
Yes. Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. For one thing, just making the time for it is, and then having the expectation that you will be creative, or something that I started saying is I have unlimited ideas.
Yeah.
And
you do.
Yes, I think I do. But somebody asked me, how I, thought of all the ideas that I have, and that was just my answer to them before I even thought about it. I just said, well, I just have unlimited ideas. Yeah. And then I started saying it after that.
Yeah, an affirmation of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, affirmations play a big role in my creativity and everything that I do, meditation and affirmations. Another thing is pushing myself just a little bit harder each time with my intensity of quality of whatever it is I'm doing. Really being attentive and aware of the quality of work that I am doing. And then not analyzing it at that time, but removing myself from it and then analyzing it. Do you understand? So I'm not analyzing while I'm doing it, but while I'm in the act of creating, I am intentionally trying to push myself a little bit further to do a little bit better job. And then not analyzing, not judging it, and then removing myself from it, and then coming back with fresh eyes, no matter what it is. And then analyzing it, and then getting feedback is a big deal. That's a really big deal. Getting some feedback from someone that you really trust. And I'm very fortunate to have a couple of people in my life that it's just my little circle of people that we create, and we share each other's creations, and we give each other positive feedback, and sometimes we give each other some tough love, and say, I feel like you just kind of got lazy here, maybe. Did you? And
that's my new creative idea.
I like it.
Okay, so did you ever feel like your work wasn't good enough, or didn't come up to your standards, or the standards that you imagine that someone else might have?
Yeah. Of course, early on, I don't know the number. I know it takes thousands of paintings before you finally get to one that is considered really good. But I made a list. Can I read this list? I have 10 things that I would.
Sure.
These are 10 suggestions.
Yes.
For someone who would be interested in becoming a professional artist, and that question is certainly one of them. Is getting that feedback. Is this quality? So after really working several years. You know, some people think, I'm just going to become an artist. I can do that. And so they just start painting. And when you see, they show you their work, it's like, it looks like 10 different artists did 10 different paintings. You know, and we've talked about that before on your show, is that there needs to be some continuity if you're going to have a body of work. Now, I'm not saying like, you can look at a retrospect with someone who's in their 70s, and this is their body of work that they've done in the last 40 years, right? And you're going to see the evolution of style. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you're embarking on an art career in the visual arts, let's just clarify that, in the visual arts, then you should have 30, 40 paintings that have continuity. They all look like the same artist. And one way to do that is with subject matter. They could all be animal portraits, or all landscapes, or all people, or whatever. Another continuity thread could be a variety of things, but they have the same technique, the same medium. They're all oils. They have the same color palette, whatever. That'll give you continuity. But some kind of continuity, so that doesn't look like you're doing an abstract, then you're doing a cubist, then you're doing surrealism, then you're doing pointillism, and all that, all in your early work, it comes across as amateur. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to do that. When you are trying to enter into the professional field, it does come across as amateur. The second thing is to go to the galleries and study. Like you said, does it meet up to a certain standard? And that's where I will go. And especially if I'm in a big city, you know, go to the galleries and see the contemporary work that's out there now, but also some of the old masters, and keep those things that I learned from looking at that work in my mind as I'm working to press myself forward, like we were saying, to just improve a little bit each time. And then get feedback. Your kids, you know, find a professional that can give you quality feedback. And how you can do that is show up at local, this is number 4, show up at local events, the art openings, the art happenings, whatever. It's so easy. It's so easy in Seattle, even, you know, in the bigger cities. Spokane, it's super, super easy. But even in the metropolitan cities, if you show up at certain galleries at every opening, every first Friday, or every art walk, or whatever, and even like another good trick is to volunteer at art events, and that you'll get to know the people who are doing the work, and you'll get to build those relationships. And then when you get to a certain point, say, hey, would you mind looking at my work and telling me what you think? Be respectful. You know, don't just go up to somebody, hey, I know you don't know me, but I need you to, I have that. Especially with the internet, it's so easy. Hey, would you look at my friend's work? And it's difficult for anyone to give feedback. You're putting yourself out there as the professional. You're being vulnerable by saying this is what you think, because they could turn around and hate you. So volunteering is number 5. Look at quality framing. There should be some kind of continuity in the framing, and the presentation should be professional. You don't want to go buy a bunch of used frames that are all different and look like you got them at the Hallmark store. You know, look at what is how the presentations are in the contemporary galleries. Number 7 is pricing, and how you can get pricing ideas is when you donate. See how they are selling in an auction that you might have donated a piece to, and that'll help you get a gauge. Have really good gallery etiquette when you are finally to the place. That's number 8. When you're finally to the place where you feel ready, and you've had some affirmations and support that you're ready to approach a gallery, be very respectful of that gallery's time. Make an appointment. Don't just walk in. And don't just walk in with a bunch of sketches. You should have it professionally photographed on a disc with a resume, or even a statement, or whatever. Invite the gallery owner to if you have a little, you know, start small, have a show in a restaurant or a coffee shop, and invite the gallery owner to come and look. And entering competitions, number 9, is a really good way. And donating, like I said, and getting into group shows, another great way to get your work seen. And number 10, which I think is really valuable and highly underrated, and that is be very positive about your art community and about the other artists in the art community, because what goes around comes around. And if you say something unkind about another artist, it doesn't make you look any better. In fact, it's repellent. And it can come back to bite you. So doesn't matter what they do or how they behave. If someone knows that you are not a person that spreads that kind of talk around town, then chances are the doors will open for you more easily than if it were the other way around.
Great advice for
Thank you.
someone who wants to get into a professional. So who inspired you in your creative endeavors? Who were your inspirations?
That's a great question. And it's changed over the years. Early on, of course, my great-grandfather, his sketchbook, my mom and my mom kept it in her bedside table. And when Mom and Dad would leave to go out, I would sneak into their bedroom and get the sketchbook out and just, just go through the pages and memorize them. John Singer Sargent was a big one. Maxfield Parrish, Chase, a lot of the American Impressionists, Whistler, even though, he worked in Europe, he was an American. Cassatt, Mary Cassatt, a lot of the American Impressionists. The ones that I wasn't really attracted to early on and didn't really resonate with, once I went and saw their work in person, like at the Musée d'Orsay, were like Cézanne and Van Gogh and Toulouse-Lautrec. Once I saw their work, up close and personal, I was like, Vermeer, as far as an old master, Vermeer, yeah, there's so many. And in contemporary times, there's some wonderful contemporary artists whose work I really admire as well. There's a guy named Mark Bong. I don't know if you know who he is, but I've become friends with him on Facebook, and I just admire his work so much. Of course, Chuck Close. Yeah, there's just, I could go on and on about.
Okay, well,
A lot of Seattle artists, actually. A lot of Seattle artists.
That gives us a good base.
I know, I just threw it all up, didn't I?
Okay, so I have 2 more questions, and we're getting close to the time. So,
okay, I'm not
what motivated you to write the book that you're working on? The book on
my students, and also some of the workshops that I've done on more business-related things, and listening to people say that they don't have a creative bone in their body, and then spending a little time with them and pushing them a little bit in that direction, finding out or helping them to realize that they do. And that was very fulfilling for me, to take a housewife who says, I don't have a creative bone in my body, and then challenge her a little bit and give her a little task and have her cry because she had no idea. That's very rewarding. So I thought, well, I want to reach a bigger audience with that. That's that.
Yes, I love that. So if you could leave the listeners with one thought from today's show, what would you want that to be?
That everyone is an artist, just not everyone is doing the work. It takes a lot of work. That's why it's called artwork. Everyone has an ability to create something.
Yeah.
And in fact, we create all day long. We just don't know it.
Yes.
We're not aware of it.
Not always an artist in the sense of painting,
Profession.
drawing, or that
Right.
kind of art, but in creating, yes.
Yes, we all are creatives. I
Yes.
had someone say to me that her husband, um, you know, he doesn't sell his paintings. He paints for himself,
Mhm.
as if people who are professional artists don't paint for themselves. And I think that there's a misnomer there. There's a misunderstanding there, a great misunderstanding of what it is to be an artist. There are a lot of people who are very involved in art, in painting, and they're not in the arena. They don't put themselves out into the arena. They might work just as hard as I do, but they will not put themselves out into the arena for whatever reason, and that's their choice. But a professional artist who sells their paintings, they do it for themselves. Graphic artists who design fonts, they do it for themselves.
Well, people do,
They have a bit of themselves in there.
right. They might do that, like I know quite a few graphic artists, and they might do the designing fonts or logos or whatever for making a living, but they do that so they can do their like fine art or.
Well, that's one portion of it. But Kate, I believe that they wouldn't sign off on it if they didn't have some personal pride in it.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I
Definitely,
mean.
yes.
There's a bit of themselves in there. They put themselves in it. So yeah, I think creativity is a very personal thing. Of course, it's very subjective, but I just because a person doesn't sell their work or does sell their work doesn't make them even any different from one another when it comes to their creative interest.
I see that on my creative friends group. Some of the people in it, sell their work, some don't, and like their work is, some of the ones that don't sell it and just say, well, I'm just amateur. Their work is amazing.
I know. I've seen that in the visual arts and in writing. I belong to a writing group, and yeah, and even like a life drawing class, I'll see someone just exquisite life drawings, and they have no desire for anyone to ever see them. Doesn't take away from the quality of work.
Yeah, they might want people to see them, like, the people in the Creative Friends group, they post it there, or, when I see it, I ask them if I can post it. And, but they don't want to, they don't want to sell it. They don't want to
Yeah.
do that. So
Yeah,
it's just a choice, I guess. So
absolutely. And it's all good. It's all okay. That's why I'm writing the book. I want everyone to give themselves permission to be creative.
yes, I think that self-expression part of it is the important key.
It is. It raises your quality of life, which raises the quality of life of those in your sphere of influence.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here today and talking to us about this. And I know you probably gave somebody some ideas.
I hope
And
so.
so that is all the time we have today for questions. I know we could probably talk for hours, but that's all the time today. We have another great show planned for next week, which that will be on Thanksgiving, and the show is Creating Miracles. And my guest is Christine Shatter, and so tune in for that. And if you can't tune in, listen to the podcast, because I'm sure you want to know how to create miracles. So I have a quote to leave you with for the week, and that is, if you hear a voice within you say, you cannot paint, by all means, paint, and the voice will be silenced. And that was said by Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah, great quote. Thank you.
Yes. So we'll tune in next Thursday, 1 p.m. And if you're busy and can't tune in, be sure to catch the podcast.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.
Good.